move on to the subject of education. In nearby Detroit, the public schools have become a national symbol of neglect and failure. That school system is $3.5 billion in debt. Officials say they could run out of money by April. I want to bring in Shoniqua Kemp. She's right here. Ms. Kemp, her 14-year-old daughter, Imani, is a student in Detroit. Shoniqua is one of 10 parents suing Detroit public schools, not for money, she says, but to improve conditions. She says she's currently leaning towards Senator Sanders. Her question will go to both of you, but we'll start with Senator Sanders. Ms. Kemp?
Thank you. Speaking of opportunities for success, in Detroit, schools open and close with no accountability to or transparency to the communities that they service. Not only that, in our schools, as you stated, we have issues with rats, mold, no working water fountains, not to mention non-certified teachers, lack of accountability around transportation, special education, and so much more. With that said, our students can no longer suffer due to lack of these things or having the dilapidated issues take place. So my question is, who's going to step up? Who's going to ensure that the policies and procedures are put in place that will ensure and bring forth a successful future for our students? Because my daughter cannot wait 8 more years for success to take place at your hands, at the leaders' hands.
Senator Sanders, let's start with you.
Well, thank you very much for not being resigned to that horrendous situation, but being prepared to stand up and fight back. That's what we need all over this country.
Thank you.
And let me be very honest with you. Hard thing to say, but it is true. A great nation is judged not by how many millionaires and billionaires it has, but by how it treats the most vulnerable amongst us. And that is the children, and that is the elderly. And do you know what? We should be ashamed of how we treat our kids and our senior citizens.
Thank
you. We have a Republican leadership in Congress now fighting for hundreds of billions of dollars in tax breaks for the top 0.2%, but somehow we can't come up with the money to fix Detroit's crumbling public school system. Somehow we cannot make sure that Detroit has qualified and good teachers. Somehow we can't make sure that there are summer programs for your children and after-school programs for your children. Somehow we cannot do what other countries around the world do, is provide quality child care and pre-K. We have got to change our national priorities. No more tax breaks for billionaires and large corporations. We are going to invest in our children and have the best public school system in the world.
Senator Sanders, before we go to Secretary Clinton, Senator Sanders, let me just follow up with you. As president, you have to decide where to spend your political capital. There's a lot of things you want to do. Where does fixing Ms. Kemp's daughter's school and other schools, where does that lay in your list of things to do?
Not only do we have a crumbling school system in Detroit and in many other areas, we have, and everybody in this room should be embarrassed by this, we have the highest rate of childhood poverty of almost any major country on earth. That is a disgrace. So when you ask me about my priorities are that no, we're not going to give tax breaks to the wealthy. We're going to ask them to start paying their fair share of taxes so we can raise the money to make sure that every child in this country, in Detroit, in Vermont, gets the quality education that he or she deserves.
Secretary Clinton.
Ms. Kemp, here is what I would do as president. Number one, I would reinstate a program we did have during the 90s where the federal government provided funding to repair and modernize public schools, because a lot of communities can't afford to do that on their own. Secondly, I would use every legal means at my disposal to try to force the governor and the state to return the schools to the people of Detroit, to end the emergency management, which I believe if you look at the data, the situation has only gotten worse with these emergency managers that have put the system further in debt. Number three, I want to set up inside the Department of Education, for want of a better term, kind of an education SWAT team, if you will, where we've got qualified people, teachers, principals, maybe folks who are retired, maybe folks who are active, but all of whom are willing to come and help. When Detroit gets back their schools, they should have all the help they can get to be able to get teachers into the classroom, to be able to find spaces while schools are being repaired. And I also would look at how we could, through the federal government, support more teachers, because we're going to have a teacher shortage in some of the hardest to teach districts, including Detroit.
Let me just follow up with the Secretary, then I'll come back to you, Senator Sanders.